Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam. Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat. Srinvatam Sugata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana. Hridyantasto Hibadrani Virinoti Suritsatam. Nashtaprayashvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. So, I'm reading from Srimad Bhagavatam in Canto 4, Chapter 31, texts 11 and 12. Shrutena tapasava kim vacho bishchittavrittibihi budhyava kim nipunnaya balenendriya radhasa. Translation. Without devotional service, what is the meaning of severe austerities, the process of hearing, the power of speech, power of mental speculation, elevated intelligence, strength, and the power of the senses? Purport. From the Upanishads, Mundaka Upanishad 3.2.3, we learn Nayam Atma Pravachanena Labhyo Na Medhya Na Bahuna Shutena Yam Evaisha Vrinute Tena Labhyas Tasyaisha Atma Vrinute Tanum Swam. Our relationship with the Supreme Lord is never advanced by simple study of the Vedas. There are many Mayavadi sannyasis fully engaged in studying the Vedas, Vedanta Sutra, and Upanishads, but unfortunately, they cannot grasp the real essence of knowledge. In other words, they do not know the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What then is the use in studying all the Vedas if one cannot grasp the essence of the Vedas, Krishna? The Lord confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Vedaischa Sarvar Aham Eva Vedya, by all the Vedas I am to be known. There are many religious systems wherein penances and austerities are greatly stressed. But at the end, no one understands Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is therefore no point in such penance, tapasya. If one has actually approached the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he does not need to undergo severe austerities. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is understood through the process of devotional service. In the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, devotional service is explained as Rajaguyam, the king of all confidential knowledge. There are many good reciters of Vedic literatures, and they recite works such as the Ramayana, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes these professional readers manifest very good scholarship and exhibit word jugglery. Unfortunately, they are never devotees of the Supreme Lord. Consequently, they cannot impress upon the audience the real essence of knowledge, Krishna. There are also many thoughtful writers and creative philosophers, but despite all their learning, if they cannot approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are simply useless mental speculators. There are many sharply intelligent people in this material world, and they discover so many things for sense gratification. They also analytically study all the material elements, but despite their expert knowledge and expert scientific analysis of the whole cosmic manifestation, their endeavors are useless because they cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As far as our senses are concerned, there are many animals, both beasts and birds, who are very expert in exercising their senses more keenly than human beings. For example, vultures and hawks can go very high in the sky, but can see a small body on the ground very clearly. This means their eyesight is so keen they can find an eatable corpse from a great distance. Certainly, their eyesight is much keener than human beings. This does not mean that their existence is more important than that of a human being. Similarly, dogs can smell many things from a far distance. Many fish can understand by the power of sound that an enemy is coming. All these examples are described in Srimad Bhagavatam. If one's senses cannot help him attain the higher perfection of life, the realization of the Supreme, they are all useless. Text 12. Kim va yogena sankhena nyasa swadhyaya yorapi kim va shreyo bhiranyaisha nayatratma prado hari. Translation. Transcendental practices that do not ultimately help one realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead are useless, be they mystic yoga practices, the analytical study of matter, severe austerity, the acceptance of sannyasa, or the study of Vedic literature. All these may be very important aspects of spiritual advancement, but unless one understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, all these processes are useless. Purport. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 24:109, it is said, Bhakti vina kevala gyane mukti nahi haya, bhakti sarna kare ye prapta brahma laya. Impersonalists do not take to devotional service, but take to other practices such as the analytical study of the material elements, the discrimination between matter and spirit, and the mystic yoga system. And these are beneficial only insofar as they are complementary to devotional service. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore told Sanatana Goswami that without a touch of devotional service, jnana, yoga, and Samkhya philosophy cannot give one the desired result. The impersonalists wish to merge into the Supreme Brahman. However, merging into the Supreme Brahman also requires a touch of devotional service. The absolute truth is realized in three phases: impersonal Brahman, Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All these require a touch of devotional service. Sometimes it is actually seen that these Mayavadis also chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, although their motive is to merge into the Brahman effulgence of the Absolute. The yogis also, at times, take chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, but their purpose is different from that of the Bhaktas. In all processes, karma, jnana, or yoga, bhakti is required. That is the purport of this verse. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshtarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindu Bhyevacha Kritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. So yeah, so we're in where the Prachetas are being talked to by Narada. They asked some questions of Narada Muni. Narada shows up. This is like fast forward into the future from the last chapter where they're coming out of the water. They had darshan of the Lord, and then uh, their whole life they actually take renunciation again. I mean, they get married and rule kingdoms, etc. And now fast forward again, then they meet Narada Muni in their later stage and ask him questions about self-realization, about God realization, and Narada Muni's talking right now. So Narada Muni's saying these two verses, and he says they kind of are one sentence. They go together. They're not separate. The two verses are not separate sentences. They are the same sentence, essentially. Um, there's different parts of the verses. This sentence essentially. Kim means what? Just like in Bengali we say ki. like Prabhupada Ki, and everyone goes Jai. What we're really doing is saying what? It's like, what do you think? Like, and like kind of like Ebonics. I don't know if I don't know as this, but in Ebonics, it's like, what? It's like trying to get like, what do you think? So that's kind of what key actually is. Prabhupada key. Everyone's like, hoorah, Jai. So similarly here, Kim means like what, and what is the use? Like what of yoga? What of Samkhya? What of Nyasa? What of Swadhyaya? What of these things? Basically, what is the use of all of these things? And all of these things that are named in these two verses, they in general, they're considered uh highly skilled, highly disciplined, highly religious, highly pious activities. Things that you would consider a good moral sattvic person to be doing. Praiseworthy activities or qualities. So they're grouped together like that. And Narada Muni's devaluing them. He's questioning the value of them, rather. He's denigrating them. Like, what of them? What of these things? If specifically there is no Hari. Where there is no Hari. Na yatra, na yatra atma frada Hari. So that's the part of the sentence that is combined there. What is the use of these things where there is no Hari? Okay. Now that's an interesting point because what does it mean that there is no Hari? That means that if there's Hari, then perhaps these things are all right. And Prabhupada mentions that. Let me see here. Prabhupada mentions that I believe in the first verse, or no, he mentions in the second verse. The second verse report Bhakti Vina Kevala Gyana Mukti Nahi. So that verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's saying like without bhakti, you can't even attain mukti. So if you wanted to do mukti, you have to you have some bhakti. You have to, impersonal mukti, we're even talking about here. There has to be some bhakti. And Prabhupada mentions on the purport. Um, so yeah, it does give the indication that there is potentially some value, but dependent on the presence of the Lord. Is Krishna present? Now we can ask ourselves, um, what does it mean for there to be Krishna present? I do karma. I mean, try to relate it to our own lives. Most of us are not great yogis, great tapasvis. We're probably usually karmis, right? We're doing, our varna, we're working for fruit of result. So what's the value of that? Might as well put that in there. What's the value of that? We're also enjoying our senses, that's for sure. Um, we have that here. Balena, Indriya Rada. So what's the use? We're all going to the doctors, right? Maybe some of you are doctors. We're all going to the doctors to increase our life, our power, our strength, our sensual ability, our eyes, our ears can't hear, can't feel, this hurts. We're actually doing all that. Why? What is even the value of life? Right? Where there is no Hari. So that's the question that we need to ask ourselves. We don't want to be too existential and depressed about it. Because where there is even a little Hari, even a little Hari, that's that's worth it. That makes the whole life worth it. And if we want to narrow in on that activity, it makes that narrow activity worth it. So if we add Krishna to the equation somehow or other, that's that's worth it. That life, there is a use to it. There was a use to it. There's different levels, of course, um, to where there is Hari. What that really means is the presence of the Lord. And Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he describes sadhana, in fact, bhakti sadhana, which isn't just like offering our karma. That's not bhakti sadhana. I mean, it is a practice of sorts, and an important part of bhakti, but it's not sadhana. We're talking about um, uh, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smarana, like the angas of bhakti um, directly as our sadhana, so chanting our rounds, reading Bhagavatam. So how much he describes it as avesha. Avesha means entrance into, absorption. We say that in English a lot, absorption. So this absorption in Krishna is really how he's defining sadhana. So we can think about it like that. We can think about a lower level doing karma and offering it to Krishna at the end of the day. There's verses that say, oh, whatever I've said, whatever I've done, um, I offer it to you. Or, at the end of the day, one could just reflect and offer everything. One can not have Krishna in mind the whole day, but then bring Krishna to mind a little bit. Those offerings, one can also be more focused on, I'm doing this for you. I'm much more conscious of you during different activities, during different things. So, what to speak of direct bhakti sadhana, and what to speak of like higher absorption, like, true ruchi or level of bhav, So there's gradations of what does it mean for Hari to be present. Um, my point earlier was that at least there should be some Hari present, right, to make it worthwhile. And then the third, let me scoot on here. The third part of this is I wanted to focus on Atma Prada. This word is glossing the Lord Hari. It's an adjective of Lord Hari. So Narada Muni is saying, where there's no Hari, who is Atma Prada? He's the giver of the self. Prabhupada translates it as full satisfaction of self. Prada means giver, one who gives. So Hari is one who gives Atma. So it could mean, what is Atma? Atma means many things too. Um, Lord Hari gives what? Yourself to you, or himself, the supreme Atma, like Paramatma, right? So either way you take it, that's kind of Prabhupada, I think, leans more towards Paramatma in his translation, indicating that really our satisfaction is in full realization of Paramatma, of the Lord, of Krishna. But also, let's just take ourself. Krishna gives us ourself. Why do we do? Why do we do um, all these activities? Like, what is the going back to like what is the use of all these activities? Why are we actually engaging in these activities? It's usually to get money, it's then to get happiness or sense gratification or survival, and then what's the purpose? It's usually happiness, right? Love, happiness. The jiva wants happiness and love and satisfaction. And ultimate satisfaction and love is in the self, it's in the soul. Obviously, the Paramatma, supreme soul, but um, on just like if you could say like, I don't know, impersonal is the right word, but a less uh, yogic texts will talk about self-realization, right? Realizing the Atma. So that is described as a greater pleasure than material pleasure. So that's what we're seeking is we're not full. We don't feel complete. We don't really know who we are. And Krishna is the one who gives us ourself. Now let's take it in more of a bhakti context. Krishna gives himself. Well, the giving of himself is also the giving of our true self, right? So if Krishna really gives himself in a full realized manner, if Krishna really reveals himself, because he wants to have a relationship, he wants to share. Bhakti, bhaj means to share. So he wants to share in a relationship. We want to share ourselves in a relationship. So he wants to give himself. That is the full satisfaction. These other activities, whatever they were, Elena, Indriya, Radhasa, Nyasa, so many things. They're not fully going to satisfy us the same way that having a fully realized relationship of who God is and who we are in relation to God, the Supreme Person, that is that is the highest satisfaction. And it's not just the highest satisfaction. It's an axiomatic. It's axiomatic joy. It's essential. Without it, the machine doesn't work. It's like it's absolutely necessary for us. That's kind of the import here of Atma Prada, that he gives himself or he gives ourself. So how can you even do something without having a self, a sense of self? People have identity crises all the time, and it's a great deal of suffering. Midlife crisis. Who am I? People questioning this. Um, and Krishna gives himself, and by dint of giving himself, we understand ourselves. And that is, it's like, I'm going to go do something, but to get the happiness. But Krishna is the giver of happiness. He's the only one who's selling it. So if he's not there, what's the use of going and doing that? You have to, if he's there though, then there might be some use because he's the giver of what you're looking for ultimately. That's kind of the import of these verses. Um, I think they're really profound. I really love them. I It's so wonderful how you can take any verse in the Bhagavatam and just go so deep into it. And I think there's a lot more depth to be meditated on here with those words and with the Bhagavad and the implication of the whole shloka. So, um, yeah, I mean, I guess I should end. I'll leave you with one last little story because I thought it would be interesting to share. When I was in Govardhan with my Guru Maharaj, it was during Kartik, and in India, there's these little bugs. People call them Diwali bugs or Diwali flies or something like that. Diwali fleas. I forget the actual term, but they come around that time when it's getting cold and very, very little bugs, like very little. And at night, you can see them all around the light bulbs. And it's only like a span of a few weeks you see them around, but every night you see this huge circus. And then every morning you wake up, you see a pile on the floor and they're all dead. Every one of them. And I remember my Guru Maharaj telling me we were walking by and he said, look at this. You know, they had such a short life actually. And he said, this is how our life looks to Lord Brahma and other demigods. It looks like a very short life. And what they think, what is the use? What is the use of they buzzed around the light for a few hours and then dropped dead? But if he said those bugs, you know, they do things. They, you know, grow up, they go to school, they get married, they work, they have to go to Home Depot and they have to do this, they have to do that. In a funny way, he was saying like that. And then they die. But if at some point they had a little bhakti, if they had a little Krishna consciousness, a little contact with bhakti in their life, that little fly-like existence was worth it. It was all worth it. So that is the lesson here today. We should try to develop some bhakti in our lives as much as possible.